Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Judge Mathis, and I am joined by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys, and we are presented by Manscaped. We don't have Casey here this week to give such a heartwarming story about the effects that Manscaped truly have on people's lives. But I think you all know by now, you can head on over to manscaped.com, type in the promo code Fanatics, get 20% off plus free shipping using that promo code Fanatics. So I'll tell you what, it's is it just me or is it starting to get I'm starting to get bored.
We just need to have action at this point.
Yeah,
Like
I
free
need something to
agency's
happen. I don't
free
even care if he
agency.
signs somewhere else. JJ Watt needs to sign somewhere. I'm getting bored.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, free agency doesn't start for a couple weeks now, so the JJ Watt thing at least can happen at any time. So we're waiting for that kind of shoe to drop and just get some closure on it one way or another. What's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? That's probably going to drag out for some more time as well. There was obviously the news about Teddy Bridgewater kind of taking down all of his Panthers Instagram stuff. So read into that what you will. Seems like players do that a lot anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of non-news stuff happening right now that we just want to happen, and it's given us time. Like it's given me time at least a little bit to kind of focus more on the draft because the Bills, we talked about there's not a ton of cap space when it comes to free agency. So we've kind of turned our attention to the draft, and that's really what tonight's going to be about because we don't expect there to be necessarily any huge splashes. Wow, New Zealand in the house.
Ooh.
Benny George, New Zealand. What time is it there? It's got to be 8
Yeah,
a.m. there,
let us
right?
know what time it is there, Benny. But tell us who's in the chat, Dave, because I see a lot of names that I'm not too familiar with. So tell us who's in the
Yeah,
chat this evening.
we've got a lot of new faces in tonight. So welcome to everyone who's joining us for the first time. We've got Bulls fan, Josiah Rage, Sheldon Cole, who's been with us, Dan Matthew, Will Potter, Jake Hangen. We've got Senpai Saiz, Benny George, who you mentioned, Mateo Shulo. So we've got a lot of new people. Sheldon Cole is really the only name I recognize as someone who's been with us before. So welcome to everyone else.
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour. Jason Humbert just coming in. Jason, we know you. So let's but not as a Bills fan, go Bills. All right, cool. So let's get into this. Before we get into the sort of the crux of our show today, which is going to be stacking the draft board. What me and Dave are going to do is we're going to talk about our three favorite prospects in the early rounds, our three favorite prospects in the middle rounds, and our three favorite prospects towards the end of the draft. And what we're going to do is we're going to sort of snake draft style it where, I get to pick a player, then he gets to pick a player, and we can't repeat. And as we're going through talking about our favorite round 1 prospects for the Buffalo Bills, our favorite rounds 2 to 3 prospects for the Buffalo Bills, and our favorite round 7 prospects for the Buffalo Bills, we want you guys to get involved with this show. So for those of you in the comment section who are new, we'll put your comment right up there on the screen, and we'll have a conversation with you. And as always, you can jump your topic, your take, your question to the front of the line with a super chat. But before we get to setting the draft board today, I want to talk a little bit about my podcast that dropped this morning because we all know what a raging narcissist that I am. So I want to talk about me first. But I dropped a podcast this morning, and as I was recording the podcast this weekend, I thought to myself, I think I've just created something that's going to be universally hated by all of Bill's Mafia. And the whole centerpiece of my show was sort of a minimalist Buffalo Bills offseason. Or I sort of rephrased it when I had to create a title, and I called it the No Splash offseason. And, I went through a mock off season because that's just how I visualize things, by mocking it and doing a mock draft and doing a mock free agency. But essentially the philosophy that I think some fans might expect from the Buffalo Bills this season or this off season is right now, as we stand, we're $2 million under the cap. That's it. And I understand that we can do this and we can do this and we can do this and we can cut a whole bunch of players and we can be, upwards of $50 million in free money. But I honestly think that in creating that podcast and talking it out to myself, which is really weird. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me someone to talk to. But and thank you, Randy, for saying it wasn't a crazy take. I
It wasn't.
almost feel like the philosophy this offseason should be, let's just run this offense back.
Mhm.
Like, get John Feliciano, get Darrell Williams under contract, get Andre Roberts back. I think Isaiah McKenzie is gone the more that I think about it. Replace John Brown with Kenny Stills, and then maybe go out and try to find a tight end. The name I'm going to utilize here is Jared Cook. I think Jared Cook could be a guy you could get on a cheaper deal, 1 year, $5 million, a nice compliment to Dawson Knox. Give Josh Allen a target down the field at tight end. Just pretty much run it back on offense. Try to use a semi-normal offseason to fix the running game as
Mhm.
opposed to changing the personnel. And then devote pretty much your entire draft to defense and just infuse a lot of youth into that defense and use your first, second, and third round picks on defense to add the talent to the defense that way. So what were your thoughts on that realization that I sort of came to this afternoon or this morning?
Well, I mean, for all of the fans, and we just talked about it. We were like starved for news, or you're starved for
Mhm.
something to happen. Like what you said is probably going to be more in line with what actually happens than what kind of maybe we're hoping for now that we're kind of getting a little anxious for news
Mhm.
to happen, right? Whether it's JJ Watt or free agency or whatever. I think what you said is probably closer to reality than the other extreme, right? And Brandon Beane has said as much. We're gonna not really make any splashy moves in free agency this year. We're gonna be diligent. The cap space is an issue. Obviously we'd like to bring back some of the guys you mentioned. If we can bring back multiple of those guys, great. Like you said, if you bring back Feliciano and Morris, or Feliciano and Williams, and you just kind of assume Milano's out the door, well, then you don't necessarily have to address the offensive line early in the draft, like a lot of people would like to, including myself, presuming that we can't bring both of those guys back. So I do think you're right, and I do think another thing you made a comment on today on Twitter was like around the restructuring of contracts, right? That's not a sexy topic to talk about, right? It's
Mhm.
not like going out and signing a JJ Watt, but like restructuring contracts is a shrewd and effective way in a cap strap year to one, give yourself a little bit more flexibility this year, but also maybe give yourself a chance to get out of some of these contracts in the future as well. Like if you
Mhm.
restructure a guy like Mario Addison, or maybe you convert some of his convert some of his salary to signing bonus that you can prorate out, like a cap hit in a future year may not be as bad.
Mhm.
So there's things that you can do, and those types of things that are going to be kind of like newsy, but not like maybe the exciting stuff is really kind of what probably is closer to reality. And I think you kind of were on the right track with that.
And the three names that always get thrown around when we're trying to free up cap space is John Brown, Vernon Butler, and Quentin Jefferson. And the thing about John Brown is it's like, yeah, John Brown's gone. Slash him, it's $8 million freed up. Just like that. You have $8 million to spend by cutting John Brown, who's now essentially your fourth receiver. But if you're the Buffalo Bills, do you really want to give up a weapon for Josh Allen just as he's starting to hit his stride? A guy who can platoon with Gabriel Davis, a guy you can feel comfortable with starting if, Stephon Diggs has to miss a week or two, a guy who can even play in the slot if Cole Beasley gets hurt. Do you really want to lose a guy like John Brown? I don't think you can afford him at that rate, but maybe John Brown is willing to tear his deal up and write a new one, because if the Buffalo Bills cut John Brown with all of these teams in cap trouble, how big is the market for John Brown really going to be? So maybe you could even take a guy like John Brown and get him to rework his deal in this
Mhm.
sort of weird COVID offseason.
Yep.
Quentin Jefferson and Vernon Butler, everybody wants these two guys out the door, and I understand why. To me, Quentin Jefferson, I remember, the Oakland game, the Seattle game. Vernon Butler, I really only remember the San Francisco game. They kind of just blended in and didn't really do much to stick out. But you look at Quentin Jefferson and Vernon Butler, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott brought them in for a reason. They had a plan for them. And that plan kind of went in the crapper when Starlo Lele opted out. That big sort of guy who can take up the double teams and free up space for other guys. If you cut Quentin Jefferson, who's your backup 3 tech? Harrison Phillips, who's probably more of a 1 tech, Justin Zimmer. So if you're the AJ Epinesa lost too much weight to be to sort of slide in. So maybe they rework Quentin Jefferson's deal. Maybe they rework Vernon Butler's deal. We all assume that these 3 guys are gone, but maybe they're not gone because
Mhm.
maybe we can rework their deals and get them to take some pay cuts.
Right, and if you're okay enough with how they performed and you think that there's maybe some better days ahead for them, then yeah, you restructure them, you do something where you bring them back, and then every guy you retain, whatever you think about like the play from this past year, purely gives you more flexibility when it comes to other free agents and the draft. You're not pigeonholed into kind of
Mhm.
having to go after one position or another. Look, if a stud defensive tackle or something falls into your lap, then you still take them. And then guess what? You can probably still down the road do something with those guys based on however you
Mm.
restructure them. So I'm not really too worried about that. I think Randy says Houston scoops up Brown in a
Mm.
heartbeat if we cut him. Yeah, I mean, I'm more with you. I'd rather restructure him
Yeah.
than outright cut him. They're like he would be the last guy I would want to cut out of that list of guys we just
But,
mentioned if we can
but the
handle it.
thing about it is John Brown, if he gets cut, where is he on the list of free agent wide receivers? Because we're in a league where people sort of forget about, what you did last year and think back what you did to like the immediate season. And he
Hmm.
missed those games this season and he would sort of blend into the middle of that free agent group.
Yep.
And yeah, Houston would scoop up Brown in a heartbeat, but it's not exactly like he was placed on waivers. He'd have to want to go to Houston. He'd have to want
Right.
to play in Houston. Deshaun Watson seems pretty serious about sitting out till week 10 and coming back week 11 to accrue that full season and get closer to free agency. He seems pretty serious and pretty intent with that. Do you really want to go to a place that's in a quarterback meltdown? And if they're willing to pay you $1 million or $2 million more than Buffalo is on a restructure, maybe you just stay in Buffalo where you're comfortable, where you've been living the last 2 years, where you got a great relationship with the quarterback, all those different things. Maybe if you're John
Mhm.
Brown, you're realizing, hey, COVID cap year, I'll just restructure, stick it out in Buffalo one more year, and then move on to the market the next offseason.
Right.
That might be something you might want to consider. So I just think that maybe in retrospect, I think we might be writing off these 3 just a little bit too soon. A couple of things before we get to the draft. 2 free agents that I've been looking at and I want to get your thoughts on. Number 1 is Jared Cook. I really think this guy's a perfect complement to Dawson Knox, and you could get him on a 1-year deal. So to me, I think like if you go back and look at his clips, even from this past season when he's 35 years old, and he is a guy who can make plays down the field. He
Hmm.
is a guy who can make those acrobatic type of jump ball catches. There were a
Hmm.
lot of plays where I'm like, yeah, I could picture Josh Allen making that throw. And that was Drew freaking Brees making those throws to Jared Cook.
Hmm.
He was still getting down the field pretty good for a tight end down the seam. So he could be a nice sort of yin to Dawson Knox's yang on a
I
1-year
mean,
deal.
you remember a couple years ago when we were like kind of talking about tight ends and we were talking about Jesse James at the time and a couple others, and Jared Cook was a guy we talked about as a potential option for the Bills, and here he is up again now after 2 years with the Saints, I believe, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken. He's been there 2 years, I think. But he's always been a guy that's had that receiving ability, but he's never really been able to stick at a place for too long. I know he was with the Rams, with the Packers, then he's with the Saints. He might have been even with another team. I know those three kind of um, jump off the top of my head, but he's always had that ability as a receiving tight end, but he's never been that like complete tight end, if you will. So as a compliment to Dawson Knox, it makes perfect sense, right? You've got a guy like Jared Cook who can come in and really just purely be
Mhm.
that receiving down the field guy. He doesn't have to be a complete tight end for you, but he adds a little bit of an element to your offense that maybe you don't have right now on a cheaper, at a cheaper option than guys like a Jonnu Smith, who a lot of people want to kind of not break the bank on,
Mhm.
but like you're going to be spending money to bring guys like Jonnu Smith and Gerald Everett in here when you could potentially get Jared Cook in here for a shorter and cheaper deal.
Yeah, Richard comes in and says, I disagree, Judge. Harry is a 1 tech, same body size as Star. He will be stronger and faster this year with his knee. He will be the number one tech in 2021. No, Richard, I think you misunderstood. I agree with you. I was saying if you cut Quentin Jefferson, who's the backup 3 tech? Like, who is it? Is it Harrison Phillips? And then you're taking Harrison Phillips away from where I think he's better, being the 1 tech. So that was the point I was trying to make, is you don't have a lot of interior pass rushers besides Ed Oliver if you get rid of Quentin Jefferson. The other player I had my eye on was KJ Wright from Seattle.
Yep.
He's an older guy who you might be able to get on a 1-year deal. Analytically speaking, Pro Football Focus still has him ranked pretty high as sort of an off the ball coverage linebacker, even for his age. So if we're looking for a stopgap at linebacker, if we're letting Matt Milano walk, you could probably get KJ Wright for 1 year, $6 million, 1 year, $7 million. So, and he's a guy who brings a veteran presence to your defense. And even though he comes from a 43 in Seattle, it's a little bit different of a 43. So he might even bring some new ideas and some things to freshen up this defense a little bit.
I like that idea. I mean, it's sort of like the Josh Norman signing from last year in a way, but a different view because KJ Wright's still like quite a productive player. He's older, and Josh Norman was more of a reclamation attempt, whereas KJ Wright, he's still getting the job done, next to Bobby Wagner. So could he bring that same magic with him? Can Tremaine Edmonds kind of be that Bobby Wagner type figure next to KJ Wright if KJ Wright were to come in and play that off-ball linebacker position, presuming Milano's gone, for 1 year? Again, you could sign him for 1 year, and that still doesn't stop you if a stud off-ball linebacker falls to you in the draft in a particular spot. It doesn't stop you from taking that, because again, if you sign him for a 1-year deal, you draft a guy and you can let him kind of learn under the likes of a KJ Wright, which is amazing. They don't have to come in and play day one. So I'm with you on that.
All right. Speaking of stud off-ball linebackers, let's transition to sort of the main theme of our episode today, and that is stacking the draft board. So we're going to start with round 1, and I want to talk about pick number 30 and who the Buffalo Bills could possibly select at pick number 30. And what me and you are going to do is we're going to sort of stack a mini draft board today, and we want your guys' input on who we pick. And we also want you guys to throw names out there, guys that you want to see the Buffalo Bills chase at pick number 30. So here's how we're going to do it. One of us is going to go first. We'll figure that out in a second. And we'll pick a player. And then the other person gets, do we want to do every other, or do you get second too? How do we want to do this? Because we can just do the other person starts round 2 and we go every other.
Yeah, we can do every other, but we're going to kind of put like 2 or 3 names out there for each round, right? So
yeah.
why don't we do that? Like you can, if you want to start with the first guy, then I'll go, and then I'll start the next round, and we'll, go back and forth for 2 or 3 names, and then we'll just do it that way.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're going to start off in round 1, and each of us by the end of this are going to name our 3 favorite prospects. So you guys get in there.
And also we're going to try to be realistic, I would say. I like that draft day reference there, Randy Hartman. We love the reference. I mean, as bad of a movie as it may be, I still watch it when it's on TV. So we're gonna try to be realistic, right? I'm not gonna sit here and be like, we're gonna take Kyle Pitts at 30. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and tell you that.
I don't have Koromoa on my list just because I don't.
Yeah, like exactly. Koromoa is like a perfect example of a guy who, yeah, I would take him hands down if he's there at 30, but I'm going to try to be realistic with who we think will be there in those rounds. So prefacing.
All right. That. I'm going to get this thing rolling, and I'm going to start with a cornerback.
Wow.
And a guy who a lot of people might say, well, the Buffalo Bills can give in the second round. I think this guy's going to be a first-round pick. I don't even know if he'll be on the board at 30 when the Buffalo Bills select. This guy is going to be one of the fastest risers on draft day, and that is a semi-local product in Ifeatu I can never pronounce his name, Melifonwu, the cornerback from Syracuse. So Melifonwu, the cornerback from Syracuse, 6'3", 213 pounds. He is the guy that I'm really honing in at the top of my draft board. According to Ryan Talbot, the Buffalo Bills and Melifonwu had a really good conversation at the Senior Bowl. And according to Matthew Perino, also from New York Upstate, two guys who have a little bit more inside information than we do, it seems like the Bills brass, unless it's a smokescreen, could really be looking to add a number 2 cornerback. So everyone wants us to go pass rusher, pass rusher, pass rusher. That's where everyone wants us to go. But
Mhm.
the Bills could be in a different mindset where they think they need to improve the coverage. So I'm going to go with Melon Fonwu from Syracuse, 6'3", 213, physical. He's active in run support. He's got inside, outside, and even safety flex. So you can use him in that hybrid role early if you want to.
Mhm.
Can play man in zone. He's an explosive athlete. He's all the physical tools. And those games against Clemson and UNC really stand out. Clemson is a big screen team, and he was sniffing out those screens. He was absolutely sniffing out those screens. And he went against De'Ami Brown, UNC, a nice deep threat, wide receiver, and shut him down pretty well. He's a Seattle Legion of Boom type of cornerback. Maybe not exactly what maybe you'd think the Bills would covet, but hey,
Mhm.
they met with him at the Senior Bowl, and they seem to really like him. So, I'm going to take Melon Fonyu as my number one favorite prospect here as I'm stacking the board from Syracuse. 6'3", 213 corner across from Trey White. Give me that. Give me that.
I like it. I think it's a great. I think you're right. I think he's going to
Mhm.
rise up. I think worst case he's like early second round, middle second round when all is said and done. Um, I'm going to go with a guy that I don't know. You tell me if it's a stretch. If it's a stretch, I'll pick someone else. But I mean, for me, as I'm kind of like looking at this and thinking, Owosu's not going to be there. I'm looking at Zavin Collins from
Go
Tulsa.
for it.
I
He's on
don't.
my list. Go for it.
I mean, I think there's a chance he can get there. I mean, he's built enough to be an edge guy. He's a guy
Mhm.
you just find somewhere to, he's 6'4", 260. So he's got enough of a frame, right, to be an edge guy. Won the Bennett Trophy, defensive player of the year in college football in 2020. He's an absolute monster. He can rush the passer. He can do multiple things. Um, he is a front seven chess piece for you. We often talk about chess pieces in the secondary as far as versatility between safety and corner. He's a chess piece for the front seven. And that's a guy that you just find somewhere to get him, get him on the field in certain situations. And he would be a guy that if he's there at 30, I'm running up and putting the name in, Zavin Collins.
Yeah. And a couple
I'm
of
gonna keep
people
tra-
are,
I'm gonna keep track of these, by the way, so we
yeah.
know like at the end.
And Zaven Collins too. He's a do-it-all linebacker. I mean, this dude can run and chase. He can blitz off the edge. He can set the edge. He can drop back in coverage. It's kind of like adding a second Tremaine Edmonds. Some people might be for that. Some people might be against that based on how they feel about Tremaine Edmonds right now. But you get a chance to add a second Tremaine Edmonds at pick number 30, you do it. So Collins is, I think a solid pick. And a lot of people in the comment section are saying, why would you pick a corner? Why would you pick a corner? Why would you pick a corner? Trust me, I feel you. I'm team pass rush. I am team pass rush, but there are plenty of people out there, and the Bills brass possibly included, who feel like, you know what? If we fix our secondary, our pass rush run rate was fine analytically, and we were getting Starlo to Lele back, which will free up Jerry Hughes and Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds, and we'll be better rushing the quarterback in 2021. We want to lock up that other side across from Trey White. Because remember, when Trey White got hurt last year, do we remember how ugly that Tennessee game was? AJ Brown got whatever he wanted from Josh Norman.
Mhm.
And the Buffalo Bills defense right now lacks a versatility to play any man-to-man defense whatsoever because their CB2 doesn't allow it. You can't play
Right.
man-to-man defense with Josh Norman.
Nope.
Can't play man-to-man defense with Levi Wallace. They are legitimately a problem, and you can't do it because they'll be exploited. And the Bills corners give a lot of room in these zones. They give a lot of they don't exactly press the guys at the line of scrimmage, and that was a huge problem
Mhm.
against Kansas City with Tyreek
Big
Hill and
problem.
Travis Kelce. They were giving them whatever they wanted off the line of scrimmage. You get a bigger body guy like Melon Fonwu, and you can sort of start to mix in some man concepts. You can start to mix in some concepts. You can get a little bit more physical, and you can get a little bit more versatile on your defense. So that's where I'm going with it. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it. I love the player. But yeah, I would rather go out and find me a nice edge rusher to be the stud edge rusher for the next 10 years. I want to
Mhm.
go find our own JJ Watt. I want to go find our own Von Miller. I want to go find our own Shaq Barrett. Of course, I want to do that. but I'm just throwing out a name here, and I'm gonna tick people off again because my next pick is also a defensive back. But this is a different kind of defensive back, and it's Javon Holland, the safety from Oregon. 6'2",
Hollywood.
6'2", 205. This guy is urgent and competitive in the run game. He is a disruptive slot defender. He's athletic. He's fluid. He had 9 interceptions in 2 seasons at Oregon. He opted out last season. So that's the only reason I think he's not a solid first round pick. He provides special teams value as a returner.
Yep.
Javon Holland was Pro Football Focus's top 3 defender from the slot of all the draft eligible players in the secondary, and on 3rd and 4th down of all the draft eligible players in the secondary. So this is a guy who plays a key role in the slot, plays a key role on 3rd and 4th down. We all want to feel warm and fuzzy by having, drafting Zaven Collins to replace Matt Milano, or having Matt Milano back, or signing a KJ Wright. We all want to feel warm and fuzzy inside, knowing we have a name, there at linebacker. But I want everyone to think back to 2017 when we had a really good defense. It was Preston Brown. It was Lorenzo Alexander. It was Ramon Humber. You didn't get Matt Milano until week 10, and even then it was rookie Matt Milano. And it was another guy, Raphael Bush, and the Buffalo Bills made that work and were effective on defense. So picture Raphael Bush, but 30 times better in Javon Holland. I think Javon Holland is a first-round pick. David Arizi does not agree with me. Everyone has...
He was on my list. I mean, he was on my short list.
Everyone has different opinions on players and where they should be drafted. Maybe we can get him in the 2nd round, Dave. Maybe I'm wrong. Not you, Dave in the comment section. Maybe I am wrong, but yes, Randy, I'm repeating one thing from my podcast.
He's staying consistent. You got to give him credit for that. If he's staying consistent.
This is the first thing I think I've repeated. Oh, that and the Jared Cook thing, but I want some fresh meat in that secondary. Think about it. Poyer and Hyde have been here forever. Dean Marlowe's been here forever. Saran Neal's been here forever. Teron Johnson's been the nickel corner for a long time now. Trey White's obviously been there. Levi Wallace and whatever shot veteran you can think of has been across from Levi Wallace for 3 years now. So give me some new blood in that secondary, whether it be a physical CB2 or a guy who can play up towards the line of scrimmage and almost mimic a linebacker a little bit. I know Javon Holland is a little bit on the smaller side, but the Buffalo Bills made it work in 2017. So just give me some new blood in that secondary. Like we've been talking linebackers. We've been talking defensive linemen. I want to talk a little secondary today. Sue me.
I mean, I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
I really don't. Okay, so I'm still not going edge yet. So I'm going with my next guy is going to be Brevin Jordan, the tight end from Miami.
Ooh, look at you, stealing my guy.
Look, I honestly have like 10 guys who I like here, but like the way I kind of see this shaking out is there's a couple other edge guys I like more in the middle rounds. I understand people like Asai from Texas. I don't know that he would be really a fit as a 4-3 edge rusher. He'd probably be more of a linebacker. So I'm not sure if that's more of if people are saying that to replace Milano, probably so. People like Jalen Phillips, people like Greg Rousseau. I mean, that's fine. Jalen Phillips to me is a little bit overrated. I could end up looking like an idiot saying that, but I'm going with Brevin Jordan, teammates of Jalen Phillips, the tight end. You mentioned it many times, second highest passer rating when targeted, only behind Devonta Smith, the Heisman winner. And the guy just catches everything, amazing hands. If we're looking for a guy that could really come in and challenge Dawson Knox to be the TE1 from day one, and you pick him in the first round, if you don't get a Jared Cook, or if you don't think Dawson Knox is the long-term TE1 and everyone's clamoring for a Jonnu Smith or a Hunter Henry, why not just take your own and not pay the $10 million a year and take Brevin Jordan and be done with it? Take him.
Yeah. I mean,
he's my second guy.
This is a dude who could play in line. He could play H-back. He can line up in the backfield, slot receiver and outside receiver. He literally does it all. I mean, when targeting Brevin Jordan last season in college football, uh, his quarterbacks had the second highest completion percentage of any quarterback, target only behind Devontae Smith from Alabama. So you throw the ball to Brevin Jordan, you complete the pass. Is essentially what I'm trying to say. And he's
Mhm.
a yards after catch machine. Is he a little like Dawson Knox because he's 6'3", 245? Maybe a little bit. Like I think maybe the Buffalo Bills picture like a 6'6", 250 type of guy, maybe more of a Freiermuth. I think maybe the Buffalo Bills picture that to go along with Dawson Knox, but maybe we're wrong. And David Arizzi comes in and he says a comment, Brevin Jordan is definitely a second round pick. I think we need to stop. I think we need to stop framing these guys sort of like by round. I know we're stacking because we're stacking the draft board, right?
But we also have to
And
remember that we pick basically at the
mhm,
end of each round.
yeah,
So when you say definitely a second rounder, like
an
he could be
early
the
second
40
rounder,
he could be the 45th pick and we won't
yeah,
have any chance to get
no
him.
shot,
So
no
so
shot.
if you want him, you got to take him at
You got to
30.
take him at 30, and that's my same thought exactly. Like if you think there's a guy who's going to be a mid-second rounder and you don't feel confident that you can trade up from where you are at the back half of the second round and you love this player and he's near the top of your board, go for it. This draft is going to be so volatile because of players opting out, because of lack of games in the 2020 season, because of virtual combines and virtual meetings. This draft boards are going to be all over the place. There are going to be guys drafted in the first round. You're like, whoa. There are going to be guys drafted in the fifth round. You're like, I thought that guy was a second rounder. I legitimately think that there's going to be a lot of surprises and a lot of GMs are going to have a lot of variance to their boards. One of the things GMs do every year is they go to the Senior Bowl. For the life of me, I can't remember who told this story. This is not my story. I own no rights to this story. Someone said this story on a podcast. It was probably Joe Marino. It was probably Greg Tomset. Somebody like that. Guys like to go to the Senior Bowl. It might have been Matt Miller too. It was someone, trust me, someone reliable said this. They all go to the Senior Bowl. They all go to the combine. These scouts, these GMs, and they sort of look and have conversations with each other, like at the bars at night and stuff, and like in the hallways. Yeah, Randy, it's Randy's story. And they look for confirmation of what they already know. They're like, hey, this guy, third round pick, right? Like this guy's totally like, so they sit there and they have these sort of formal conversations back and forth. But what's really happening is they're literally, confirming what they think about a player or starting to doubt what they think about a player and all these different things. Those conversations aren't happening. There is no combine. The Senior Bowl, everybody was socially distanced and things of that nature. No one's going out to the bar afterwards. So this
Mhm.
draft could be crazy different. I look at Jabril Cox and I think, that guy, I get some Darius Leonard vibes from Jabril Cox. Darius Leonard was a second round pick, but he sure as hell, if people could run it back, they take him in the first round.
Yep.
Maybe a team sees the next Darius Leonard and Jabril Cox. Oh, everyone thinks he's a second rounder. Who cares? We're taking him in the first round.
Yep.
Maybe Team C, the next Jonnu Smith and Brevin Jordan, they're like, well, we don't really care. We're going to take him in the first round. Maybe
Mhm.
Team C, Vita Vey and Tyler Selvin, and they're like, yeah, we don't care. We're taking him in the first round. So, yes, in most places, do you see Brevin Jordan mocked in the second round? Yeah, you do. In most places, do you see, the two guys that I mentioned mocked into the second round? You do. But it's early second round for some of them.
Yeah.
They ain't going to be there for us late in the second
Yeah,
round.
we're
So,
basically picking
mhm,
like almost in the second round. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you just have to think of every pick
Mhm,
we're making, at least in the first 3 picks. It's like you're basically at the start of the round after. That's how I think about it.
mhm. All right. So let's get back into it. I've taken two guys. You've taken two guys. I'm on to my third. Do I take your boy here? Do I
Go
take your
ahead.
boy from you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Take him. Take him.
Wyatt Davis, right guard, Ohio
Good.
State.
I'm glad you did because I was gonna struggle to
uh,
not pick him if you
I
didn't.
had it down to Wyatt Davis and Liam Eichenberg as my last two. If you were going before me and took Davis, I would have taken Eichenberg. But Wyatt Davis, right guard, Ohio State, 6'4", 310. He's a day one plug and play right guard. And I think that fits perfectly for what the Buffalo Bills want to do, because I honestly think the Buffalo Bills want Cody Ford to be their left guard next year. I get that
Yep.
vibe from them. So
Yep.
you get a plug and play right guard in Wyatt Davis. You put these two beefy dudes on the outside on the hip pockets of Mitch Morse, who's a little bit smaller and leaner. you got yourself a pretty good interior offensive line if Cody Ford progresses the way you want him to. I mean, he's just a physical blocker. He can improve the run game, and he's very fluid for his size. So if Wyatt Davis is there and the Buffalo Bills think he's a fit because we didn't re-sign John Feliciano, have at it, because I think that would be just a home run selection.
Home run selection. I mean, I saw a couple people saying Joseph Asai could fit in a 4-3 defensive edge. I don't see it. I think he's too lean. He's under 250 pounds. It just doesn't scream 4-3 edge to me. So I'm not going to go that direction. I think I'm just going to go with we're just going to be like the mirror images here. Give me Eichenberg with my third guy as my third guy. So beef up the offensive line. If you don't get Darrell Williams back, Eichenberg should be a guy that, yes, he's a plug and play. He's really more of a left tackle, but he's such a good player that you could plug him in at right tackle probably day one and not worry too much about it. And ultimately gives you insurance for Deion Dawkins as well at the same time. Again, this is presuming you don't re-sign Darrell Williams. Give me Eichenberg. And then now between the two of us, at least we have Davis and Eichenberg covered.
Yeah. So we got Eric Kinsey coming in saying nothing new. Thank you for making my point for me, Eric here. Eric coming in. So this is why I say you guys are the third host of this show. Nothing new. Last season, they had us taking AJ Epinesa in round 1 before we traded for Stephon Diggs. We ended up getting him in round 2. So I think that's a really good example. AJ Epinesa, our draft pick last year, is a pretty solid example. And Kendall Merksey was asking, would you guys be interested in trading back? Hell yeah.
Yes.
I would
yes,
love
definitely.
to. If we could trade back. But the problem is, it's like, I think Mac Jones and Trey Lance are going to be gone. And like, is somebody trading up for Kyle Trask? If there's a player that's just sticking out on the board that somebody wants to trade up for, it's probably a player that I'm going to want us to draft.
This is a great. I love this.
Yeah.
Showman and the Iceberg.
Look at this.
I like it.
Showman and the Iceberg.
I like that, Josh Clark.
And nice the thing about Eichenberg too is he played left tackle in college.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If there's ever an instance where Deion Dawkins, God forbid, gets hurt, Eichenberg can slide over to the left side, which means you don't need a swing tackle who can play the left side. You can sign like a Joe Haig, or you can try to groom like a Trey Adams, a guy who maybe you don't want on the left side, knowing Eichenberg can slide over and you can put the other guy in at right tackle. So I like it. So my 3 were Javon Holland, Ifeatu Melifonwu, who's, I'm probably mispronouncing that name, from Syracuse.
Melifonwu, I think is how
Melifonwu, and Wyatt Davis. Your 3 were much easier to pronounce: Zaven Collins, Liam Eichenberg, and Brevin Jordan.
I like it.
Let's move on to the middle. Let's move on to the middle rounds here. I actually had Brevin Jordan in my middle rounds, but you get to go first. Rounds 2 to 3, and people in the comment section, throw some names out there if you have some names you want to talk about. These are the guys that we think would be good fits for the Buffalo Bills in the second and the third round, our 3 favorites.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names here. Like, I don't know how we're only gonna have 6 names between us. Maybe we should do 4 each for this one, since they're covering 2 rounds. Let's do 4 each. All right, so I'm gonna start with my Man Crush Monday.
Before you start, though, thank you, Jeff King, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Reminder out there, if you want to jump your question, your take, anything to the top of the line, you can throw out a super chat just like Jeff. Jeff, always appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, Jeff. If there's a prospect you want to talk about or a name you want to throw out there, feel free to leave a comment, and we'll make sure we got you covered. But who's your Man Crush Monday here?
It is Monday, after all, and it's my Man Crush Monday. I've been kind of on this guy for a while. You went secondary in round 1. I'm going secondary in the middle rounds. It's my guy, Paulson Adebo from Stanford, the boundary zone cornerback who opted out in 2020, had 4 interceptions in 2019, 4 interceptions in 2018. Ball skills that are, in my mind, near the tops of this class compared to anybody. Would be a perfect fit in the Bills' zone defense. 6'1", just under 200 pounds. Go watch some of this guy's tape. When the ball's in the air and his body control, when he's going up to defend passes, you see things that you just don't see from other corners. Like, he'll tip the ball with one hand and then have the awareness to know that the ball's still in play, and he'll tip it away with the other hand in midair. I feel like this guy has a really high floor. in the NFL. And so if we're addressing the secondary in the middle rounds, I'd love to see the Bills go for Paulson Adebo from Stanford.
Yeah, we got Randy Harry coming in saying Carlos Basham, Tyler Selvin, Baron Browning, Jabril
Oh,
Cox,
don't
Josh
worry.
Myers.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
all of those gents are on my list of guys we can possibly take here. B Will too says the FSU safety, Hamza Nasidrline.
Yeah,
So dude, is this the
there's so many.
year Keith Taylor's on my list? I don't know if I'll get to him because he's pretty far down my list. But man, this is the year of names I can't pronounce. But I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take a guy who I think could also be a first round pick, a guy I mentioned earlier. I am going to go with Jabril Cox, linebacker,
Yes. I'm glad you
LSU,
did.
six
Love
foot
it.
four, 230.
You have like my list in front of you, I think, is what you're doing.
Our lists are way too the same. It's coming to the point where should we host a show together because our lists are always the same. But here's a stat that I
Love
liked from Pro Football Focus. He had identical coverage grades in FCS at North Dakota State as he did at LSU. There was no drop off in his game stepping up into the SEC. He had 3 penalties in his entire college career between North Dakota State and LSU. He's going to transition probably from more of a middle linebacker spot to an off the ball linebacker spot. He can be a real tight end eraser. He's real comfortable in zone coverage. His one-on-ones in the Senior Bowl were what stood out apparently. And this is what makes me think he could go in the first round is that he blew up the Senior Bowl. Like he was the best linebacker in 1v1 drills at the Senior Bowl, which makes me think, some real Darius Leonard vibes coming from him, a guy who could really rise to the draft boards. Early second, late first could be a landing spot for Jabril Cox. So who knows? Maybe we got to use pick 30 on him. But this guy has all the coverage skills you need to plug and play right away and replace Matt Milano at the off-ball linebacker spot.
I love it. I mean, Jabril Cox is my favorite coverage linebacker in the draft. I think he's going to be a guy that starts rising up a little bit. You're right. I think that he's likely that could sneak into that first round. And Ryan Teal comes in hot take 2021 first rounder for McCaffrey.
If all it took was one first round pick, I would do. If all it took was the 30th pick of a draft, I know he's worth a lot of money. I know it's a big contract, but I mean, if all it took was one first round pick and they have to eat all the guarantees, yeah, I think I would do it.
I was I was trying to change our ticker to kind of update people on our picks by round.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and name my next guy, and then I'll try to update the ticker so people know who we've said already. Because I've seen some people say Zaven Collins, Melon Fonwu, who we've already mentioned. So we'll try to catch everyone up who's kind of filing in. So you got Jabril Cox with your first,
and Dave comes in and says, "Yeah, Cox is weak in run support. Yeah, that
so was Milano.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, so was Milano.
Yeah, there's going to be knocks to every single player. You hope you can get him into an NFL camp. You can coach him up. There's a reason why he's not a top 10 pick. If he was a good run defender, he'd probably be a top 10 pick with the way he drops back into pass coverage. So, all right. I think that means that you are up now. Paulson
I am up.
And Jabril Cox are off the board.
I love those so far. I'm going with, I hope, a favorite. I know Randy likes him. Guy in my neck of the woods over here, just down the road where my brother lives in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Boogie Carlos Basham at the edge with my second selection. This guy, if you want to talk about production in college, I mean, you look at his numbers: 15 sacks in 19 games played over the last 2 years, 33 and a half tackles for loss since his sophomore year. Ton of experience chasing down the quarterbacks of the ACC, including Trevor Lawrence. Has a few sacks on him. Built for our defense, 6'3", 280. He's a 4-3 end through and through.
Power player.
Give me Basham in the middle rounds as the edge guy after not taking an edge guy in the first.
And what I love about Basham too is I can envision the Buffalo Bills took Basham in the second round. You have Jerry Hughes on one side, you have Boogie Basham on the other, and you have AJ Epinesa who can essentially flip him back and forth as that rotational defensive end between both sides. I think I want to see more AJ Epinesa now that he's slimmed down on the right side. And I always like to have more of a power player on the left side, which I thought was going to be AJ Epinesa, but clearly not since he's slimmed down. Dylan comes in with a super chat. Dylan, appreciate the super chat. He says, thoughts on Ojulari? Swipe move is elite. Ojulari is a good player. I get Jerry Hughes vibes from him. And I just don't know if the Buffalo Bills want to add another player like that. The Buffalo Bills inherited Jerry Hughes Jerry Hughes has gotten a lot better as an edge defender as his career has gone along. But I don't know if that's the type of defensive end that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are looking for. We don't have a long history on them. In Buffalo drafting defensive linemen, it's been Daryl Johnson, who's a rather big dude, and AJ Epinesa, who was a rather big dude. So they've seemed to take those more bigger defensive ends throughout their history, but who knows? Maybe, who's the guy we loved last year? Brian Burns, or 2 years ago. We love Brian
Oh,
Burns.
yeah.
We love Brian Burns.
Yep.
We didn't think Buffalo would consider Brian Burns because he was more of a bendy edge rusher than he was put his hand in the ground type of guy. But he came in and visited with Buffalo. So who knows? I personally don't have Ojulari on my board because I just don't think the Buffalo Bills would consider him, but I could be dead wrong. I could be dead wrong.
All right, I got our first now going down there. I'm working on our seconds. So we got our first down there with Liam, Fetu, Malafonwu, Zaven Collins, Brevin Jordan, Wyatt Davis, and Javon Holland. Those were the guys we had in the first. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding our seconds in here.
So Kendall says you don't think Beane is willing to or is looking to draft a Hughes replacement. Here's the thing, though, with drafting a Hughes replacement, you got to find a spot for that guy in the roster for the 2020 season. Do you really want two guys like that? Especially if you're looking to rotate your ends, you're looking to set the edge, you're looking to win now. To me, I think if you're looking to replace Jerry Hughes, it might be something where you're looking to replace him once he's gone, just like Cole Beasley. The Buffalo Bills have to replace Cole Beasley eventually too, right? But I can't picture them drafting a Cole Beasley clone and with Cole Beasley still on the roster, just because it's like, what is that guy giving you while Cole Beasley's still on your team? What is this guy going to give you while Jerry Hughes is still on your team? That would be my only concern with looking for a Jerry Hughes type of player. I just don't know how it fits along that defensive line this season. But again, I could be dead wrong. I'm never going to pretend to know exactly what's in the mind of these coaches because they evolve. That's what I love about these coaches, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane alike. They've evolved since they started becoming, scouts and coaches. They've changed things they've done. You see Sean McDermott with that growth mindset in his coaching philosophy. He's a lot more aggressive on, on fourth downs and things like he used to be. And Randy coming in with, that's why you go for Shi Smith. Hey, Shi Smith might be on this list here of
wait, who was the last guy you just mentioned? Who's the last guy you just?
I've taken Jabril Cox.
Okay, yeah, you didn't go for your second guy yet. Okay,
no,
yeah.
My next guy is gonna be the big old fatty, 6'3", 245 pounds. Bring these two teammates in together. This guy opted out of the 2020 season, did not play, but it's Tyler Sheldon, the one technique from LSU. To me, he's a Vita Vea type of player. He's an absolute space eater. But despite the fact that he's still a space eater, he's still a really, really good athlete. He was PFF's highest graded run defender in the SEC when he played in 2019. I think he's just a guy who makes Ed Oliver. He makes Tremaine Edmonds. He makes Jerry Hughes. He makes those guys better by just eating up a ton of space. He's not going to load up the stat sheet. I think he has potential to give you more than Star Lotulelei because he's a way better athlete. But that's just a dude who's just going to eat up a whole bunch of space and give way for Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds. Kendall Mursky says, will Aleem McNeil go before Shelvin? I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Aleem McNeil, another type of one tech, but the thing about Aleem McNeil is former running back. Like that dude's a raw player, but I think you can envision more upside in Aleem McNeil because he used to be a running back, because he's a little bit slimmer. You can kind of get the best of both worlds and get a 3-tech, 1-tech.
Joe Marino honed into my Aleem McNeil love. I said it first.
You get dibs because you're the NC State
I had the
guy.
receipt. I had the receipts from when we did our no matter what guys from back in like the early part of the month. He was on my list, so let's just I feel like now I have to take him now, right?
Yeah. So I'm going with Tyler Shelvin. Who are you going with?
All right. So let's see. So we're going heavy defense here. So far in the middle rounds, we've went all defense. We've got a Debo, Cox, Basham, and Shelvin. You know what? I think I'm going to continue with the defense. I really am. I think, got the corner, got the edge guy. Now let me go with the guy that I've liked as well. Let me go with Hamza here.
Someone had to take him, or else we would have been we would have seen our number count drop by 60. The people would have lost all respect for us.
So another guy where it's like, is he going to end up playing like sub-package linebacker, or is he going to be kind of a true safety? He's a versatile safety. He can play, in the box. He can range. Um, he, he's just a guy that's around the ball all the time, and a guy that if you're thinking about coverage and kind of deploying unique um, packages to where you're going to have very specific matchups that you want to take advantage of, he's a guy that you can kind of play in that role. I mean, I will be interested to see kind of where he ends up playing once he gets to the NFL. What kind of role is he going to be? Kind of that Jeremy Chin type? Is he going to be that kind of Kyle Duggar type player when he gets to the NFL? That excites me because I think he's got a lot of potential, and we've seen him flash on tape. Obviously, McDermott loves the versatility in his players, and he checks the box there. So give me Hamza there with my third selection.
Kendall Mercy coming in saying, if we take Hams in the second, I'd love to thank Tony Fields late to pair together. I really like Tony Fields.
Judge is a big Tony Fields guy here.
I love me some Tony Fields. A guy who was a play caller at both Arizona and West Virginia, a guy who was used in almost every facet on third down, whether it be blitzing, whether it be covering tight end. This is a guy who can go sideline to sideline. Is he a little slim? Could he do some bulking? Yes. But I get some real good vibes from Tony Fields. Tony Fields is weird because he's not good enough to make my list of round 2, round 3 favorites. And I think he's going to go in round 4, and we don't have a 4th round pick. So again, if he slips, and because I'm wrong about, my projection of Tony Fields, and he gets into that 5th round, hop all over Tony Fields. But he just screams to me late 3, 4th round type of guy. But I do love me some Tony Fields. I think he's a guy who's flying under the radar. I'm going to shift to offense. Here. We're picking 4, right?
Yep. This will be your third.
All right, so I'm going to shift to offense. I'm going to go with Walker Little, offensive tackle from Stanford. Everybody knows my love for Walker Little. 6'8", 310-pound Walker Little. This is a guy who's played one game since 2018. So this is the reason why he could possibly drop to the 3rd round. But in my opinion, despite his lack of playing time, he's a guy who's a good enough athlete. Guy who went to Stanford. I think he's a plug and play right tackle right away. He's got that left tackle, right tackle flex. So even if you re-sign Darrell Williams and he drops in the draft, he can be an early swing tackle for you. Absolute freak athlete. Was in the same high school class. I've mentioned this before as Dredrick Wills, Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, had a higher SPARQ score, which is relative athletic score, than any of those guys. So despite the fact that you get him in the 3rd round, possibly, this is a guy who he had top 10 projections when he was a full-time player in 2018. And he's sort of just fallen off everybody's radar. This isn't like a Trey Adams situation where his knees are shot either. Like, it was just one injury. He missed 2019 and then he opted out of 2020. So this is a guy who is just flying way under the radar, I think, who could end up being the best tackle in the entire class.
I mean, yeah, I love the pick there. I think that, the way you've kind of set this up with Wyatt Davis and then Walker Little, like in theory, if Feliciano and Williams are both out the door, you could make those picks with your first 2 picks and kind of be set on your offensive line for years to come. So I like the pick. I'm also going to go offense here with my last pick. This will be my 4th, and it'll be another guy that was on my no matter what list, and it's Kenny Gainwell, the running back from Memphis. I think that, we've picked a 3rd round running back 2 years in a row, make it 3 years in a row and add Kenny Gainwell to that mix. Cause again, I think he's a guy that kind of like you described with Tony Fields. Like, I think he could go in the 4th round. I'm not saying he's going to be a 3rd rounder, but we don't have a 4th round pick. And if you like him, like you like Zach Moss and like you like Devin Singletary the last 2 years, take him in the 3rd round. Depending on what you did with your first 2 picks, and get Kenny Gainwell. Versatility obviously is what you go and get him for. He can run, he can catch. He's just as good of a receiver as he is a runner. He's got the speed to be a home run threat. He's not going to be a huge volume guy, but that's okay. If you think that maybe the future here in 2021 is a combination of a Zach Moss and a and Kenny Gainwell with Devin Singletary potentially being the odd man out. If he doesn't kind of show us a little more. I mean, I like Devin Singletary, but I would like to add more of a home run threat, a more versatile guy to our backfield. And for me, it's been Kenny Gainwell all along. So give me Kenny Gainwell with my last selection.
All right. I'm going to go back to the trenches because Kendall Mursky says draft the trenches, baby. So I'm going to go back to the trenches with my last pick here. And I'm going to take Aaron Banks, another Notre Dame guy. Big, powerful guard. I think the question about him is like, well, can he pull? Can he be a pull kind of guard? Or is he just a big, bulky body that you need in a run heavy scheme? And he went out in the Senior Bowl and he was pulling like crazy and doing a bunch of things that maybe he wasn't really asked to do at Notre Dame. So Aaron Banks came out and I think Aaron Banks is a guy you could probably get the third round who could probably start for you day one at, right guard. So Aaron Banks is another big body guard, a Notre Dame type of guy, a guy who played with Liam Eichenberg. Heck, if you can get Liam Eichenberg and Aaron Banks, I think those two guys could be plug and play starters day one on your offensive line at right guard and right tackle. Two guys who are familiar with each other from their time at Notre Dame. So you're just killing two birds with one stone in terms of a communication standpoint. But yeah, I love me some Aaron Banks from Notre Dame.
Aaron Banks, nice. And Ryan Teal says, thanks for the super chat. Ryan says David Carr wants Buffalo to sign Shaquille Barrett and Von
Does he want the
Miller.
Buffalo?
Smash those like.
Here's the thing. I just don't get it. Those to me, those guys are 34 edges. They're 34 edges. I just don't see how they fit in the Buffalo Bills defense. Give me a JJ Watt. Give me a guy who on first and second down could play left end. And then give me a guy who on third down, on a passing down, can move in and play defensive tackle. I want more power players on this line. Don't get me wrong. I love Shaq Barrett. I love Von Miller. I just don't see the fit. I really don't. So I don't want to burst anyone's bubbles. Maybe the Buffalo Bills have a different plan than I do. Maybe they're going to reinvent their defense a little bit because Todd Bowles reinvented his defense a little bit. He was going a little 43. Steve Spagnuolo, was going 34 and then back to the 43. Some of these guys have really reinvented themselves over the year. Maybe Sean McDermott's in for a reinvention this offseason, but I just don't see it.
And Sheldon Cole comes in and says a 6'4" Jordan Poyer type player would be lethal. I'm not sure who he's referring to there.
I
But
think he's referring to Hamza. I think he's referring to Hamza.
Okay. Yeah, Hamza's 6'3". So yeah, right up there.
Speaking of Jordan Poyer, Richie Grant from UCF, we didn't mention him, but he's another guy who I love.
Honorable mention.
Maybe I should have gone Richie Grant. I didn't want to double up on the safety.
Look,
but I just
these are just guard. Like there's a lot of guys.
Oh, there's so many.
And this is just kind of like a fun way to kind of do this. But I think that's it for the middle rounds. We're gonna have to go to late rounds now. And I guess what we should do, we do 3 late rounders and then one guy that we don't think will be drafted that we like. So
I like that.
We'll do it that way.
I like that.
Okay.
All right. So I get to start this one, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Chauncey Golston, edge rusher from Iowa.
He's on my list.
6'5", 270. I can envision him being our number 4 defensive end and our number 2 3 technique behind Ed Oliver on passing downs. He is a power rusher who can slide inside on passing downs. He's a great run defender. He sets the edge. He was AJ Epinez's teammate. He lays the hit stick. Give me some Chauncey Golston, the edge from Iowa, as one of my favorite middle. I think he's going to go higher. Like I think he's going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick, but there are enough people telling me he's going to go late. If there's enough people telling me he's going to go late, I have no problem throwing him in there.
Love it, man. I'm going to add a playmaker or hopeful playmaker with my first pick here. It's a guy that I've been talking about a lot leading up to the draft, and that's Jalen Darden from North Texas. Playmaking speed wide receiver with kick return, punt return ability. I talked about Kenny Gainwell as being kind of that home run threat on the ground. Jalen Darden from the receiver position, probably going to be a slot guy. But at the end of the day, like you want speed. He's your guy. You want a guy that can potentially help you on special teams with kick and punt returns if you are not able to bring back an Andre Roberts. Not saying that the Bills are going to trust him day one to do it, but he has that experience in college and he has that potential and he's got that ability to take it to the house on any given play. So as a later round receiver, day 3 type guy with ceiling, give me Jalen Darden.
And we just got to get, Benny George coming in saying Ozo, Adogizwa. Again, this is the year of names I can't pronounce. UCLA. He's a bigger type of inside outside type of three technique power playing defensive end. He flashed a lot. He's more of a raw player. He doesn't flash as much on like game film as he does just as an athlete, but he did show up at the Senior Bowl in a big way and impress a lot of people. I think he's more of a round 2, round 3 guy. Yeah, we gotta let Randy. We gotta let Randy come in with some of his South Carolina guys. We love Sedarius Hutchinson. We love Shi Smith. Don't get us wrong, Randy. Marcel Rios coming in with Rondale Moore. He probably would have fit in more with the second and third round guys. But haven't really heard much O-line talk. We all know that's a major issue. Well, so far we have mentioned Walker Little, Aaron Banks, Wyatt Davis, and Liam Eichenberg. No one mentioned our boy Dylan Radunes, by the way. No one
I
mentioned
know
Dylan.
he was an honorable mention for me. He's
Honorable
rising
mention.
too.
Yeah.
He could be a second rounder at this rate, the way he's rising up right now. So
I'm
I like
going to
him.
go with another offensive lineman. This is a name I have not heard people talking about. And when this show is over, I want you guys to go type his name into Twitter and just read some of the sort of Twitter summaries from scouts. Watch a little bit of his game film and some highlights. Kendrick Green from Illinois, 6'4", 315, can play all three positions on the interior: left guard, center, right guard. And this dude, he's very much a zone lineman. And the Buffalo Bills transitioned to more of a zone blocking scheme last year. So I think this fits. Kendrick Green from Illinois, freak athlete, can play left guard, right guard, center. He's mobile. He's flexible. He gets out in space. He is not a big man power gap guy. He is very much a zone guy. But I like Kendrick Green as a guy who can come in and be a depth player early and maybe possibly someday work his way into the starting lineup. Give me some Kendrick Green on day 3. I wanted to throw out a name I haven't maybe utilized yet.
I like it. I am going to throw out a name I have utilized because I just love the guy, and it's Chris Rumpf as the sort of, again, positionless type player, maybe for the Bills. He's used as an edge player for Duke, but he's probably a little light. I know I mentioned earlier that I didn't like necessarily aside from Texas because I thought he was light for from a pure pass rushing 4-3 end standpoint. Chris Rumpf, same situation, but the production is there for him. And I'd much rather kind of take a chance on a guy like that later in the draft than a guy that you're not sure where he's going to fit early. Pass rushing college, undersized, playing linebacker in 4-3, is probably where he ends up. But again, then you have to question whether or not he's going to be more of like a strong side backer that does more pass rushing than he is as a coverage backer. But again, pass rushing is what he does. And as a late sort of situational edge rusher, I mean, I'm all about kind of adding guys with potential there. So give me my guy, Chris Rumpf, as my second player here.
And what I like about Chris Rumpf is, too, you can play him a little bit at linebacker. He's kind of got that body type where maybe you think you can transition him to linebacker, play that Lorenzo Alexander type of role. And he's really good at those A-gap and B-gap blitzes, which Matt Milano is known for. So maybe he can be a situational gap blitzer and play some special teams with that body type. Jeff King coming to the Super Chat. Always appreciate it, Jeff. Speaking of pass rushers, he says, guys, haven't been on here enough to get your take on Watt. Is the reward worth the risk? Older, beat up, injury prone. Is he worth it? Want educated honesty, which you are both clearly educated. Well, thank you. I have read a book or two in my day.
Very complimentary.
I wear glasses. I went with the polo.
I do
today.
too.
So yeah, look at that. So
you guys may not know this about me.
Don't let the brim on his hat fool you. Dave is an educated gentleman. Look at that. Would you look at that? I wish I could take mine off because of all these lights and stuff, but I just can't. I'm blind as a bat. JJ Watt. I love it. I love the fit, but I would only be willing to go up to maybe $10 million. And here's why I love the fit. He's a guy, like I said, I envision on first and second down playing that powerful left end, sort of giving your defensive line a little bit of a power dynamic, and then shifting inside on passing downs, backing up Ed Oliver in that 3-tech while also being a starter on the edge. I think it'll work wonders for some of our younger players to be around a JJ Watt and Ed Oliver and AJ Epinesa and Daryl Johnson. I think there's something to be said about that veteran presence in the room. Not that Jerry Hughes isn't a veteran presence, but I think that JJ Watt is more of an Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa type of player. And on top of all that, this is a guy who's been there, done that. 3-time defensive player of the year, even though the fact that he's like sort of towards the tail end of his career, still a top 10 pass rusher, according to Pro Football Focus. If that is a website that you want to adhere to for statistics. So at least some people think he's still a fairly good defensive end in the National Football League. And um, he's the kind of guy who I don't think he's gonna get lost in the moment. When we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, that's the kind of player that's going to give you the juice to get you over the top. So I'm all in on JJ Watt, but I don't think I pay him $17 million like maybe he wants.
No, and I'm with you there. You mentioned, uh, I think this will be my last late round guy, right? That I'm about to mention here.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna go offensive line finally here with this one,
Ooh.
and it's a guy that maybe people haven't really looked into much yet, but his name's Brendan James from Nebraska. He's probably more of a guard in the NFL, but again, it's kind of similar to what you mentioned. With the guy that you had picked, he can play multiple positions. He's decent in both the pass and run blocking. He played tackle at Nebraska. He could be an emergency backup tackle if needed, but he's more likely going to play guard. But you like the fact that he can play guard and maybe have some outside flex potential. He's kind of like maybe that Ryan Bates type of guy. Decent size, 6'5", 300 pounds, playing in the Big Ten. So, um, I'm sorry, Big 12 in Nebraska. So, no, Big 10. I don't know why I said Big 12, Big 10. But Brendan James, as a late round offensive lineman kind of prospect, I kind of think that with that versatility, you're looking for something you can hang your hat on in the later rounds of the draft. And the versatility is obviously something the Bills like. So that's who I'll go with my third guy.
Yeah, and Sheldon, you just said you super chatted. I believe we put this up, the 6'4" Jordan Poyer type of player. Are you referring to Hamza there with the 6'4" Jordan Poyer? Because if so, yeah, we did mention that. That would be a really nice thing to have on this defense. Um, I'm torn here.
I
I'm
know.
torn because I
I
got one
know.
pick left. And I got a whole bunch of names here.
I know. I had to
Uh,
go at least one offensive lineman.
yeah,
Otherwise, what am I doing here?
we got the guy, the running back from Louisville sticks out to me. Marquez Stevenson, K. Johnson, the wide receiver, stick out to me. Jacoby Stevens, somebody the Buffalo Bills have met with, sticks out to me. My love for Reed Blankenship, but
I know. I almost picked him.
our guy draft diamonds, Damon Talbot, he's in the know with some of these guys, and he thinks March 1st is the deadline for players to decide whether they want to go back and use that extra year of eligibility or not. And he seems to think that Reed Blankenship is going to go back to Tennessee State University for another year. My heart is officially broken, but hey, that just means we can take him next year to replace Micah Hyde. We don't have to waste the roster spot. But
Isn't
um,
he a senior though? Wasn't he a senior?
yeah, but COVID, you get an extra year,
Oh, true.
and you
Yeah,
got till March 1st to decide. So who knows? Some of these names we talked about, they might be going back.
true.
Um, but I'm gonna go with a guy that I'm gonna go to a position I haven't mentioned yet, tight end. A
Okay.
guy that you know a
Oh,
whole lot about.
I hope I know who this is.
Carrie Angeline, tight end, North Carolina State.
Yes. I couldn't
Six
pick him. I already picked Brevin Jordan, so glad you picked
s-
him.
6'7", 250. I get some Tyler Croft vibes from him. He's played inline and he's been split in the slot. It's about 50-50 his usage at NC State. He was a USC transfer, so that tells you what kind of athlete he is. He's got height, he's got length, he's got good hands, he's got good ball skills. Is he the world's greatest blocker? No, but he's another guy that I think is a really good complement to Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is used a lot underneath in the screen game, in the dump off game, all those different things. Angeline is the type of player you can, run over the middle of a football field. Matt Bushman is another good tight end that I like as well. Um, Sort of in a similar mold to Carrie Angeline, but he can work the middle of the field. He can be a weapon in the red zone with those hands and that length. So I wouldn't be upset the Buffalo Bills took a shot on a Carrie Angeline in the middle rounds of the draft here. as we get towards the end of the draft.
Nice. I mean, that's tough picking just 3 guys out of this lot,
Mm.
right? I mean, there's other guys that like I
CJ
was like
Maribel.
I like Wyatt Hubert from Kansas State as an
Mm-hmm.
edge guy late. I went with Rumpf, so I didn't go with Wyatt, but I like Wyatt Hubert. So now we're getting into the sort of undrafted range, right?
Yeah.
And so I had one guy on my list, and it's a receiver. I had Jalen Darden as my only receiver that I kind of picked the entire night tonight, but it's a receiver that comes from a big time program. And his receivers coach last year actually was quoted on saying that he could have been a first round pick. Now this is before the season started and it didn't really pan out for him, but I'm talking about a guy from LSU named Racy McMath, and he's 6'2", 6'3", 225. He's got that prototypical big size you're looking for and sort of that X receiver mold. He's got special teams ability. He can come in and probably play special teams if he was going to kind of come in and play. Only 33 career receptions, but never really panned out for him at LSU. But when he did kind of play, he looked good. He's got the physical traits you're looking for as a special teamer, late round undrafted type of guy who maybe could flash in camp. Racy McMath is the guy I had as a UDFA.
Well, you were describing that. I thought you were going to go with Tamion Terry from Florida State. So you got me there. You got me there. I thought I knew who you were talking about, but I didn't. But all right, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I got 3 names. I'm cheating. I don't care. I love UDFAs. UDFAs are my jam. And we will get to you in a second there, Jeff. Number 1, they're all from the MAC, by the way. They're all from the MAC.
Of course.
Antonio Phillips, cornerback from Ball State, 6 foot 175. He could be like a Levi Wallace type of late round zone corner. Antonio Nunn, one of my favorite receivers in the later rounds of this draft. He's officially declared. Why? Because he told me personally on Twitter. I literally tweeted at Antonio Nunn, I'm like, you declare? You official? And he said, yeah, I'm official. I am going to declare. And it was I was replying to him saying he's going to run a 4.45 at his UB Pro Day. So Antonio Nunn is 5'11", 190, but he is a very athletic 5'11", 190. He's a very built guy for that size. He can play the boundary. He can play the slot. He can return. He's got special teams abilities. He's got that 4.45 40, and he put up some numbers at UB despite the fact that they didn't have a quarterback. Literally, their quarterback was their punter. So they ran the football a lot at the University of Buffalo. So Antonio Nunn, and then Jeff, I promise we're going to get to you. The next one, another personal selfish one, University of Buffalo, Coyote, Aguaseka, offensive tackle, offensive guard, 6'5", 315. This guy's got process written all over him. Head on over to YouTube and watch his like day in the life of like this dude wakes up at 5. He's that guy who like blends protein shake with like 12 raw eggs, chugs it, goes to the gym, does this, does that, does this, and then like at the end, he's like, yeah, I got to go hit up my 4-hour night class at 6:00 at night. It's like, how's this guy do what this guy does? But he's he's obviously a good run blocker in that zone run blocking scheme at the University of Buffalo. 31 game starter between left tackle and right tackle. He's athletic enough to develop the pass blocking areas of his game. He may not be that. You always have those guys who produced at a big school, but you're like, yeah, but is he an NFL athlete? This dude's an NFL athlete who produced at a smaller school.
Right.
So give me some Coyote, Aguaseka, and another plug. He will be the guest on The Take next Monday. I will be interviewing him about the virtual process, whether he's talked to the Bills or he hasn't talked to the Bills, what teams he's talked to. I'm going to talk to him about some different kind of, blocking schemes and things of that nature. So stay tuned for that on Monday. My episode of The Take will be with Coyote Aguaseka about his pre-draft process. And whether maybe
now we have to
hope
the Bills get him because
now
we're invested. We're invested now.
All right, we got a super chat here from Jeff King.
Yeah, Jeff's coming in, says he likes Rico's take on converting Duke to tight end. He's freaking hungry. We want hungry. I don't like it personally. I just like it's not doing it for me. Like it's a fun thing to talk about, but I mean, look, if he couldn't get on the field in 19 that much as a receiver, what do we think he's going to do? It's not for me. This isn't for me.
I can picture it, but I don't know if I can picture it with the Buffalo Bills. I think what you're going to see from the Buffalo Bills I think what you're going to see from the Buffalo Bills next season in order to improve the run game is maybe get a little less spreadish. Like if Duke Williams, you want Duke Williams to be a spread tight end, a move tight end, like a guy who's barely in line, like is in line in a pinch, is in line after being spread just because you're trying to throw teams for a loop. I get it, but is Duke delivering for you on special teams? He doesn't have the speed to be a gunner. Is Duke delivering for you as a blocker? He's not going to be an inline blocker, a guy who can play on the goal line, a guy who can play in those big bulky situations. So I'd rather have Isaiah Hodgins. I would rather draft a guy or sign a Jared Cook or something of that nature. And if you
Mm-hmm.
have a Jared Cook who's a very pass friendly tight end, and you have a Dawson Knox who can do a little bit of both, your number 3 tight end is probably going to be more like a Lee Smith bargain bin guy. Eric Tomlinson, you mentioned, a guy who
Yeah.
can just
Yeah.
block, a guy
Yep.
who might cost you a little bit more money, former Canisius College basketball player, carved out a nice little niche for himself in Carolina as a run blocker, Chris Manhertz.
Mm-hmm.
I envision that being the type of tight end the Buffalo Bills want at TE3. I can't
Right.
picture Duke Williams being TE1. I can't picture Duke Williams being TE2. And if I can't picture him being one of those two things, I don't know if he can fill enough roles to be a back half of your roster player with
Right.
such a niche responsibility. I just can't picture it. I love it. Like I love the idea of it. And I think there are other teams out there who could do it. But yeah, Randy says Dan Arnold from Arizona. He's my 1B behind Jared Cook because Jared Cook's my new 1A. Give me Jared Cook and then give me Dan Arnold because I don't want to pay for Gerald Everett or Jonnu Smith.
Or Tomlinson. Oh, you're
Yeah.
talking about for the receiving.
I'm talking
tight
about
end.
for TE1
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah. For
TE1
T1. Yeah. Yeah.
1A to Dawson Knox's
Or
1B.
Brevin Jordan. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Or Pat Fryermuth. Somebody
Yeah.
earlier said you could pronounce Fryermuth. Yeah, but it took me a really long time to learn how to spell that. Freie. I always used to be Frie. So
Glad these
yeah.
guys are making it in right at the end. Thanks,
So
guys.
yeah,
Thanks.
typical Buffalo bootleg fashion, showing up at the end, trying to pick up the drunk girl at the bar, the Buffalo bootleg coming in.
Lights
But
are
I will
turning
say this,
on.
guys. The Buffalo bootleg, their episode that they dropped Sunday morning, Max and Jeremy was
I
freaking
love those
hilarious.
guys.
I
I
almost
love those
crashed my
guys.
car like 3 times driving to work. They're just a hoot. So check out their podcast on the Buffalo Fanatics Podcast Network if you haven't already. Thomas Burke coming in saying Duke Williams has really big feet. Can we convert him to punter? You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think here's another take. Here's another interesting take. The Buffalo Bills have some RFAs. Ike Butker, Levi Wallace, Corey Bojorquez, Andre Smith. I don't think you tender Andre Smith. I think you let him test the markets and you can bring him back for like $700K or whatever. I don't think there's going to be
Yep.
much of a market. But Ike Butker, it's $2 million if you want to tender him, So maybe if you think Ike Butker can be your interior swing guy for the next 3 or 4 years, maybe you give him an extension. Give Ike Butker a 3-year contract to sort of lower that cap hit. If you have Corey Bojorquez, if you think Corey Bojorquez is going to be your punter, give the dude a deal. Like get him a longer deal. So you don't have to pay him $2 million this year. And the same goes for Levi Wallace.
Right.
Honestly, I prefer just actually, I take it back. Just give Levi Wallace 2 years, 1 year, $2 million if you're giving him back. I don't want any years on that contract. I love Levi Wallace, but I want something new. I want something different. I'm getting Levi Wallace fatigue here. So Jeff King coming in. I'll give him the super chat. Thank you. Jeff,
Yeah, he
appreciate
says,
it.
let's be honest, we're happy. We happy with drop it Knox. Do we have the capital to go get someone? Or are you that confident? Well, I mean, we could get a Jared Cook, I think, like you said. Like it's not going to be huge money. Tomlinson and Dan Arnold. Or you could go into the draft and go for a Fryermuth or a Hunter Long in the middle rounds or someone like that. But like my thing here is with tight end is you either get a compliment to Dawson Knox that's more of a receiving guy that can like take the pressure off Knox, or you go all in and try to find a true TE1 right in the draft, like a star in the making. I don't like this sort of like in between crap where it's like, oh, this tight end in the 3rd round, like Hunter Long. I'm not bashing Hunter Long, but I'm like, what that's just going to, it's just going to cloud the room even more. Right. Like that's where I come out when I talk about tight end. So either get a Jared Cook, who's a veteran towards the end of his career, who does something really well and is not there to do anything more than what he's there for as a receiving tight end. Or you say, we're going to go all in on tight end. And whether that means big money to a Jonnu Smith or a Hunter Henry or a Gerald Everett, or drafting one early, you have to kind of decide what you want to do. And it's all going to be based on what you think Dawson Knox is going to be giving you.
Yeah.
So
I really wouldn't be surprised if Dawson Knox is the only tight end on the roster next year that was on the roster this year. Like Reggie Gilliam is a great story. He plays special teams, all those things. Maybe he makes it as that like TE4 / fullback flex, like all those different things. But the Buffalo Bills seemed really down on their tight ends in their end of the year press conference. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but in my mock off season this morning on the take, I had them signing Jared Cook to a 1-year deal to be TE1 and having Dawson Knox being your TE2, a guy who can move, a down the field receiver type in Cook, and a guy who can block more in Dawson Knox and can do some underneath stuff in Dawson Knox. And then I had them signing Chris Banhurts as the TE3, really going out and getting 2 veterans to solidify that room, because quite frankly, it's been a joke. It's been a joke.
Yep.
It's been Dawson Knox trying to develop and everyone else around them getting hurt. Everyone else around him getting hurt, or like,
being Lee Smith,
being a left tackle. Yeah. Being Lee Smith. Thank you for, I was trying not to be too insulting. But
we like Lee Smith. Kind of.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Dan Brown. Oh, you want to read
it? Dan says, been a minute just showing my support at work, so I'll catch the playback. But we appreciate that, Dan. Dan all the way out in Hawaii.
Listen, he's lying. He's not at work. Dan, you are not at work. You are surfing. You took your phone out of that waterproof pouch for 2 seconds to come in here and super chat. And we appreciate that. But you don't need to lie to the people. You're not working. You're out there surfing, enjoying that Hawaiian lifestyle. He's a modest man. He doesn't want to rub it in.
He doesn't, and I'm jealous of him every time that I see his name, because I know that. And now people in the comment section talking about tight end, like what to make of tight end on this team. It's like, do we not need a tight end because we don't use it, or do we not use the tight end more because we don't trust the personnel? And it's the kind of chicken and egg argument you make all the time, or people make all the time. It's like, if we had an elite tight end, I am fairly certain we'd find a way to use them. But that's all about coaching, kind of what you only have a certain amount of draft picks. Like you said, we'd love to draft all these positions, but you only have a certain amount, and you only have a certain amount of dollars in free agency. So you have to decide what's a priority if you're the Bills, and then we'll find out.
All right. So I don't think we're going to have time tonight, Dave, to do a TDN mock.
That's fine. We'll do one Thursday.
Well, here's what we can do. We could collect this list. I'm going to make a nice, pretty little graphic tonight, probably put it on Twitter, and we'll use this list we've created today to do a TDN mock at the top of the show on Thursday.
Right. And we'll have to pick from this list, right?
Yep. Yeah. And we got to have to pick from that list. So,
I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you Thursday. We really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun tonight. I had a lot of fun. There were some new faces, some new names. Show. We appreciate it. And there were some old names too. So, hey, it's the off season. We are here to have fun. We are here to sort of experiment with, what we want our football team to do. We as Bills fans know that
Did you experiment in college?
I dabbled. We as Bills fans have experience. We know that the offseason is usually the most fun, because it's a time where we can pretend like our football team, we can do things to make our football team better. But hey, our football team's already good, so it's even more fun now. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.